Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. And we do recognize that we meet on the traditional territory of the LHTAKO DENE Nation. With respect to the agenda, we have a couple of late items. A verbal report from me on my meeting with the chiefs last week, or week before last. So my apologies on that. That should have been on, but it's just a verbal update, no decisions. We've got a late breaking one, so K10 you have in front of you, and that's a time-sensitive one that just came up today with respect to the RV park construction award, and that's a function of us not meeting again until April 29th. And then the final one is a bylaw final adoption for N2. So with that, can I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Councillor Elliott, so moved. Councillor Runge, second. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, and we have the regular council meeting minutes of March 15th. Motion to approve. Councillor Goulet, so approved. Moved. Anybody? Councillor Paul, second. I guess I can see you guys there too, so there we go. We got hands going all over. Okay, you got the mover and seconder? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. And looking at the screen, adoption of public hearing minutes of March 1st. Anybody want to put their hands up on the screen? There we go. Councillor Vic, seconded Councillor Rudenberg. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thanks. Okay, we have a presentation today by the CCCTA, and Sydney, I see, there we go, and we'll just wait for, does Sydney have to just unmute and say something to pop? So if you can just unmute and say hi.
Hello, hi.
There we go, okay. So Sydney, I'm going to turn it over to you. We do have your brief in front of us, but I know you're going to take us through the highlights. So the floor is yours.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time this evening. For those of you that I haven't had the opportunity to meet in person over the last couple of crazy years we've had within the industry, my name is Sydney Redpath, and I have been the Director of Marketing for Cariboo, Chilcotin Coast Tourism for the past just over 3 years now. Throughout my time, I will be giving an overview and context to the brief that the Mayor said that you have in front of you, but I believe it is pages 15 to 20 of your package, if I'm not wrong. I believe it's on page 20. There is a request for a letter of support from our organization regarding our application for the 2023 renewal of our regional, municipal, and regional district tax program, referred to as MRDT, to save me all of the words. For those of you that aren't familiar, MRDT is a 3% consumer tax applied to the sales of short-term fixed-roof accommodations. These funds are reserved for the uses of tourism promotion under the provincial tax code, and is a common tax applied throughout the majority of tourism destinations in British Columbia. This process of renewal is required by the province every 5 years and involves obtaining support from our overnight accommodators and our respective municipalities and regional district bodies. For a little bit of background, the CCCTA became an eligible entity for regional MRDT collection for the purposes of tourism marketing beginning May of 2018. As you all know, prior to the start of the regional MRDT program, there were very minimal dollars for tourism promotion for our smaller communities and our rural areas. As compared to other destinations in BC that had access to MRDT funding, we were at an extreme disadvantage when it came to creating awareness and thus favorability of tourism within the Cariboo-Chilcotin Coast because of that funding disparity. And to give you a real sense of what we were competing against, in 2019 alone, over about $74 million of MRDT were used to market other tourism destinations within British Columbia. At the time of applying for regional program collection in 2018, the City of Quesnel had declined to be a part of the regional program. This has meant 4 years of the City of Quesnel and Quesnel businesses not being able to participate in the benefits that that regional marketing program has accumulated. The highlights that were included within the brief that you're looking at include the leveraging of about $2.5 million MRDT dollars into just about $4.5 million of marketing programming. Highlights such as garnering over 250 million marketing impressions, over 105,000 direct referrals to tourism businesses, over 1 million website visits, over 1,500 television commercials placed, and joint campaigns with Cal Tire and the History Channel, as well as an independent source of funding that our communities could apply to for their respective initiatives. After the first year of the program, we had also achieved a 7% increase in overnight accommodation revenues, which exceeded our target of 5%. And then COVID came along and reset that whole first year of fantastic progress. But throughout COVID-19, these dollars have been especially important as the majority of our businesses saw their revenues and thus their marketing dollars disappear overnight. We have been able to keep marketing on behalf of our businesses in our communities, either driving visitation when it was permissible to do so, or inspiring consumers to think about their future travels. Jumping ahead to today, we are hopeful for your support for Quesnel's inclusion within this application for renewal of the regional program in the form of a letter of support. Our staff and our executive have been very grateful for the proactive conversations with city staff, mayor, and the tourism liaisons on this council on this topic. And we are committed to continue strengthening our relationships across all of our programming, not just marketing. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have for the remainder of my time. So I'll keep it short and sweet to allow as much time as possible for any questions if there are any.
Great. Thank you, Sydney. And just for context, again, the reason that the city opted out last time is we wanted to focus on community marketing and destination marketing as a partnership with the CCCTA. And of course, we weren't successful. We came very close with the number of hoteliers who signed on, but we didn't quite meet the benchmark. Council was made aware of that, and it's at Council's direction that the city manager and Manager Reid and myself met with the CCCTA, had a very I think, Sydney, you characterized it correctly, a very proactive, productive conversation. We won't be dealing with this resolution for the letter, of course, during a delegation, but it is on our agenda for tonight. And so that report will come forward tonight for decision. So right now it's a discussion on Sydney's report and what the CCCTA currently has underway with the MRDT program that they do have in place. So questions or comments from council members? And I am looking at the little screen sitting above Sydney's head there. So Councillor Rudenberg and Councillor Vick, if you want to weigh in, just wave away. Questions or comments? Councillor Paul.
Thank you. And hi there, Sydney. We've connected through New Pathways to Gold and look forward to future connections. I have about 5 questions. And the MRDT is applicable only to fixed roof accommodations. Does that include B&Bs? And I'm thinking of the B&Bs, for instance, at Barkerville.
Correct on the fixed roof accommodations, bed and breakfast, definitely. Your Airbnbs or your VRBOs, the online accommodation platforms, do also remit MRDT through their respective platforms. And that was since 2018, I believe that legislation changed, because previously they were not.
And so I raised the question as to why it doesn't apply to campsites.
I can't speak on behalf of the Ministry in Finance and provincial legislation, and wouldn't want to speculate on it either, but it's the Ministry of Finance and the province who controls the application of the program.
Yeah, and Councillor Paul. Yeah, and Councillor Paul, for your edification, we actually tried to approach the Minister of Tourism for some changes that we felt needed to be done and made in the MRDT. As an example, we think it actually should be applied provincially now. There's enough saturation point. And Sydney's correct. We were punted to the Minister of Finance. They're the ultimate arbiter of how the tax is applied.
Okay, continuing on, are you aware, Sydney, of any, or maybe this is not even possible, where the proceeds from a MRDT can be shared back to a municipality such as Quesnel in part? Is that possible?
We do have the example of Quesnel not being applicable to the past 4 years that we've had the program. But we did have dollars set aside for our community groups, including municipalities, to apply to us for funding for their own respective initiatives. City of Williams Lake, being an example comparable to the City of Quesnel, had applied to us a couple of times successfully to promote their mountain biking initiatives, as well as the Ale Trail. There's an application process for that. The applications are then approved by our regional marketing committee, which are made up of business owners, managers, and operators throughout the region, with the priority of driving tourism visitation and overnight accommodation on behalf of the businesses and those dollars that they represent.
Okay, thank you. As the mayor alluded a moment ago, there wasn't sufficient appetite on behalf of enough local hoteliers to get a local MRDT program going. I'm wondering if you feel that the appetite would be improved if it was to go through the CCCTA as is what is being proposed.
Perhaps, Mr. Mayor, I would turn that question to you. I'm not quite comfortable speaking to the background on that.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sydney. So the math is just different. So in our case, the bed count is isolated to the area within the municipality, and so it's a double referendum, so your double referendum applies only to that. The minute we go up to a regional level, the double referendum applies to the bed count for the entire region. And so again, the CCCTA will be in a similar situation to what we were. They're going to have to get buy-in from Quesnel, but against a different ceiling of the 5151, right? And what we committed to is that the signatories that did sign off on a municipal MRDT, that I will be reaching out to those individuals post council's decision tonight. That if we are supporting the CCCTA's application, I will be reaching out to those hotels that did sign on for our MRDT and explaining to them why we're now supporting going to a regional one, and then hopefully that would be the numbers necessary for our contribution to regional.
Thank you. I got a couple more. I noticed it in the transportation section of your document. There doesn't appear to be, and maybe that's by design, any mention of the Purdon connector to Wells Barkerville, so that there could be a circle tour, which I think would allow for an improvement. Is that a...
No, again, Councillor Paul, Sydney is not in a position to be talking about a route that doesn't exist. That's our job, right? To try and bring that into existence. Sydney is talking about a marketing program for things that do exist.
Okay, I understand that, but I think it's worthy of mention that is a potential advantage.
Yeah,
so.
Different subject matter.
Okay, and finally, and this goes back a long way, even pre-MRDT, when I was on staff here at the city, I was appointed by council to sit on the then Cariboo Tourism Association Board of Directors. And the reason for that was that there was a feeling, whether it was real or perceived, that the North Cariboo wasn't getting the full benefit. And back in those days, the CTA was powered by membership only. And probably, I don't know, maybe some provincial input. No?
We operate on a stakeholder model now, so it's not a member.
Yeah, I understand how the CCCTA operates now, and I'm talking, this is back in the late 90s. And the reason that council wanted to have some local representation on the board of directors was to help ensure that the North Cariboo got their fair share of attention in the promotion of tourism. And I just throw that out there. I'm fully in support of what the plans are here. And I look forward to seeing the North Cariboo, Quesnel and Wells and Barkerville and Bowron and the whole works receiving the benefit of the full benefit of tourism promotion because we are now full, or we hope to be full members in the future.
Okay. Other questions, comments from other council members? Councillor Runge.
Hi, thank you, Sydney. That's a great report. My question actually is with regards to, because as we're looking at the 5-year MRDT strategy going forward, would that be open to add, should we vote in favor of this, would it be open to adding current partners that might not be on the list right now on, I guess it's page 27 of the report, or 51 for us? And I'm thinking of some of our Indigenous First Nations around here and our campground and our bike trails. Like, would that be added on, because this is a 5-year plan? We'd only be coming in this year, and I'd hope that if we decided to come on, that if we're missing something on this list, it could be added to it. I guess that's really my question. Thank you.
To give some context to the within the brief, I tried to condense it down as much as possible because the full 5-year strategy that we submit as part of the application is about 46 pages long, and I didn't want to put you all under that amount of reading. So tried to summarize it as best as possible. Even within that 46 pages, the template that the ministry gives is still very, very high level. So that level of detail that you gave example of with your Indigenous communities and trails as an example would make its way into the annual tactical strategies and not the full 5-year. Just because of those templates that the ministry requires. And of course, when we put together those annual tactical plans, input from our communities and our community groups and Indigenous partners is incredibly important. So absolutely always opportunity for input. The formatting of the 5-year plan just doesn't allow for that level of detail that you gave example to. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, for clarity, in our conversation with the CCCTA leading up to this delegation and the report coming to council, we did have a conversation pertinent to Councillor Paul's point about the past concern about CCCTA. But as we should all be aware, part of that is that CCCTA, was generally destination, specific, and we didn't have. So Bowron, Barkerville were basically the destinations, unlike down the Bella Coola corridor where you have lots of resorts and various things. So that is shifting and changing. And as you heard Sydney indicate, the mountain bike trail system in Williams Lake was a target for some of the funding. So we've had that discussion as well. And then the other aspect, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sydney, and I know you've got the marketing side, but there's another aspect of CCCTA, which is the product development side. So we had a good, robust conversation about that, where we now have a product, the trails, but we don't actually have a tourism product that goes with that. So we don't have a company built on with rental bikes that will take people out for tours and so on. So we can tap into some resources to start developing those kinds of things. And we've already had the regional trails coordinator for the CCCTA reach out to us to begin that conversation about articulating on the trails. And then the final piece as well is Destination BC dollars and incremental tourism dollars from the province are actually being pinned in many regards, and whether you're part of an MRDT program. And so we've actually been, informed that in some cases we make ourselves ineligible for not being part of an MRDT program that exists. So did I misstate anything there, Sydney?
No, I think that was a good summary. Yeah, on the other on the other side of the organization to marketing, we do have destination development, product development, business development. That's also where development with our Indigenous communities and businesses exists as well. So have staff available for those conversations.
Okay, Councillor Vic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Sydney. Nice to see you again. Sydney, I'm just wondering, with Quesnel's inclusion in the MRDT, have you approximated what the Quesnel contribution would be to that MRDT collection?
I have not. I don't know if city staff had done those approximations. I would assume they had, and I don't know if that can be spoken to.
Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Manager Reid.
Yeah, so it's really hard to work it out because we're going back on stats from 2007, which is the last time the province reported on accommodation. Before it only was reported on for those communities that already have MRDT. So we were thinking around the $200,000, $250,000 range, but it's a bit of a step in the dark. Okay,
that's great. Thank you. And then the second question I have, Sydney, is on your plan for the 23 to 28 plan. You indicate a priority will be to utilize market program data to determine campaign conversion and economic impact. Are you indicating that you're not able to do that currently, and this is a future initiative? Because I really believe strongly in that metric. That's a very powerful metric, and I'm wondering if this is new ground for you guys.
New ground in the sense that it will actually be in place before that 2023 to 2028 strategy comes into effect. It'll start this year. As a tactical reference, we're starting a booking engine on our regional site to answer the ever important question in marketing that can be quite impossible to answer a lot of the time, is how do I know that the dollars that you spent in marketing actually generated dollar return in bookings for my business? Not everyone remembers every single piece of advertising that they saw in order to generate a purchase, but the idea being our biggest piece of feedback that we got from our businesses throughout these, 3 to 4 build years that we've had of this program for the very first time. We wanted to take it very seriously and have built a booking engine that will be launching very, very soon. That will be able to start to answer that question and help drive our campaign and content effectiveness to boost those dollars and answer some of those economic development pictures of tourism within our communities.
That's great. Thank you, Sydney.
Any other questions or comments from council members? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So Sydney, thank you very much for spending some time with us and giving us some of those answers. And as I said, later on in our agenda tonight, we'll make that discrete decision about participating in the letter of support. Okay.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Council, if I could, because we do have some individuals in the gallery here who are interested in 2 specific agenda items. With Council's permission, if we move up to K3 and K4, the 2 remedial action pieces, I think that would be helpful. The owners of those properties are in the gallery. Okay, with Council's permission, anybody got problems with that? Okay, go ahead then, Director Turner.
Thank you, Mayor. The subject of this report is the remedial action requirement for 1927 Dragon Hill Road. In summary, in the spring of 2021, 1927 Dragon Hill Road was reported as being impacted by land movement. Following inspection by the fire chief, evacuation orders were immediately directed to the owner of the property and staff occupying the business. The building is expected to be uninhabitable, and the owners have been notified that they need to get a geotechnical report to confirm this if they feel that is warranted. The owner has not taken steps to do this or otherwise deal with the property and has advised staff they intend to allow the property to revert back to the city via non-payment of taxes. As evidence in the attached photos, the structure has been significantly compromised, having shifted off foundation, showing numerous extensive cracks in foundation and in the structure. Additionally, numerous tension cracks were witnessed along the bank of the hill in close proximity to the building, leading to concerns of further damage and sliding. The geotechnical analysis completed after the slide stated that the site was not deemed to be safe. A chronology of the full time has been provided in the background section. Again, staff have concerns about the building contributing to further bank destabilization, as well as becoming a target for squatting. In addition, it is expected as the bank, and if the bank continues to fail, there will be increased issues with respect to removing the building. Already, we will be looking at geotechnical assistance with this, but as it further deteriorates, that would only become more problematic. That's why we're recommending to go ahead now. The recommendation is that council consider the principal building located at PID 024-971-839, Lot A, District Lot 6681, Cariboo District Plan PGP 46598, Civic Address 1927, Dragon Hill Road, known as the property, is an estate that creates an unsafe condition as per Section 73 of the Community Charter. And that council requires the listed property owner to obtain and provide the city with a report prepared by a qualified registered professional that the building is repairable and safe for the use intended, or demolish the building under a demolition permit by August 15, 2022. And the council authorizes staff to have the building demolished should the interested parties fail to demolish it within the time frame given, and the full cost of such demolition and disposal of materials to be added to the property taxes of the property.
Okay, on the recommendation, can I have a mover? Councillor Runge, so moved. Seconded. Councillor Vic. And since the owners are here, there is an opportunity if you've got residual questions or are unclear about this action. Okay. All right. So any further questions or comments by council? Go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to Director Turner, so as stated, the owner is not taking steps to do this and advise staff that they intend to allow the property to revert back to city via non-payment of taxes. So if we have to get geotech in there and do the demolition, obviously somebody's going to have to, this is going to go on to the general taxation. Do you know what the cost of that would be, roughly?
Thank you. I've not been able to acquire costs at this date.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions or comments, council? Seeing none on the recommendation on the remediation action, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion is passed unanimously. Okay, and then on to K4 with respect to Panorama Ridge.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to step aside on this because the subject property here abuts my property, so I'm just want to step aside.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Director Turner.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to obtain a remedial action order for 505 Panorama Ridge. Again, going through the summary, in the spring of 2021, 505 Panorama Ridge was reported as being impacted by land movement. Following inspection by the fire chief, evacuations were ordered immediately to the owner of the property. Damage to the building is severe enough that it has been deemed unsafe to enter without review of a structural engineer. The building is expected to be uninhabitable, and the owners have been notified that they need to get reports from qualified registered professionals to confirm this if they feel it is warranted. As evidence in the attached photos and notes from the chief building official, the structure has been significantly compromised, having shifted off foundation, showing numerous extensive cracks in the foundation and in the structure. Additional numerous tension cracks were witnessed throughout the property, as identified in the resulting from a large complex slide in this area, and also shown in the photos attached. The geotechnical analysis completed after the slide stated that the structure was not deemed to be safe, and that the site should not be reoccupied. The remedial action order in this case, and one of the reasons why I should just point out here that we're not going to demolition at this point, this building, as stated in the background information here, is not expected to have any dire effect on any further movement in that area. So at this point, we are not recommending that we go to a demolition order. We do think it is unsafe, though, if people try to access the property without notice. So the recommendation is that council consider the principal building located at PID 018-457, 011, Strata Lot 1, District Lot 81, Cariboo District, Strata Plan PGS 176, civic address 505 Panorama Ridge, known as the property is in a state that creates an unsafe condition as per Section 53 of the Community Charter, and that council requires the listed property owner to place warning signage at the property, warning of the danger by May 1st, 2022, and continuing to ensure that the building is not entered or occupied, whether by themselves, their family, or others, without being the benefit of a qualified registered professional to review the structure. And that council authorizes staff to install signage warning of the hazard should the owner not post the warning signs.
Okay, on the recommendation. Councillor Runge, so moved. Councillor Elliott, second. Questions or comments from council? Seeing none, and the property owners are here. Are there any questions that you have at this time? Okay. So the property owners have indicated no. So on the motion, all those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. We're just bringing Councillor Paul back into the room. All right, Councillor Vic, you're on tap. Executive Chair Summary Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this, the purpose of this report is to give the highlights of our executive meeting that we had on March the 16th. Pretty full agenda on that meeting. First, we discussed the BC Winter Games for 2024. And in short, the nominating committee is now ready to start fleshing out the board and the executive. And of note is that the nominating committee is interested in not only attracting I guess, proven volunteers from the past, but also looking to seek new members of the community that could fill the complement of that board as well. So that's very, very encouraging. We did discuss the community forest, and I believe there's a full report coming on that tonight. It's entered a new phase of engagement with the public, and there's more to come on that. We then discussed Riverfront Trail interpretive signage. Executive heard from Manager Reed regarding the removal of obsolete signs along the Riverfront Trail. And as is practical, signs will be removed if they meet certain criteria. And we enabled staff to make these decisions in the future rather than bringing it to committee. So if a sign is incorrect as a result of geographical change to the trail, that sign could be removed. If the sign lacks wayfinding function and also lacks a natural, cultural, or historic purpose, that sign could also be removed. And if a sign is considered a duplicate or it's redundant, that sign could also be removed. Next, we move to a bid application package opportunity for the 24, 25, or 26 BC 55 plus games. And I would assume we attracted that attention because of our bid for the Winter Games. The city received an invitation to bid on this games. The games generally occur in late August or early September every year, and it's considered a much larger event than the BC Winter Games. Although smaller cities in the past have qualified and hosted these games, Quesnel does not actually have enough visitor beds on its own to meet that requirement. So the prospect of hosting that large event is exciting from a community and an economic standpoint, but we're going to allow Manager Byron Johnson to converse with the folks at BC Game Society and really flesh out if it's practical for us to apply for that. So executive will report back on that at a future date. Next, we discussed downtown parking pass requests. The city of Quesnel received 2 separate pass requests to allow for dedicated long-term parking on downtown streets. The intent of the request was to increase safety for employees leaving their premises after work. The city does not have any similar arrangements for street parking, and setting a precedent such as this would impact parking availability for the public. For this reason, the 2 requests cannot be approved, and they were denied. The city manager will respond to the inquiries, outlining other possible parking options, such as all-day parking lots, which may address their concerns. Then we moved on to a housing initiatives review. The city manager Johnson elaborated on the upcoming housing review by Innova Consulting. The intent for Innova is to conduct an in-depth review of the city's housing and development practices. Specifically, the consultant will review the policies and practices of various city departments, with the goal of ensuring that developers get the information assistance they need to generate successful projects. And of course, this is all in our strategy to confront the acute market housing needs that our community is going to face, and this is part of that puzzle. Lastly, we just had our presentation from Sydney a few moments ago. So I did report out about that meeting that we had with the CCCTA, and to the mayor's earlier comments, it was a very constructive conversation, which led to where we are today. And there's no recommendations, and our next meeting is April 13th.
Okay, questions or comments from anybody? Councillor Paul.
Yeah, regarding the Riverfront Trail signage, what is the status of the Seal Tingley Park sign? Is that going to be removed, or is it going to be upgraded? Because it's getting pretty weathered.
So again, there's no intention at this point for that sign that I'm aware of. No, none.
So that begs the question, every other park has a new sign.
Not every other park,
Well,
only strategic parks, Councillor Paul. Either the city manager or Manager Reid. We've only done a few parks at this juncture, correct? The large-scale parks?
I think we've done Laborde Parks, Chuck Beath Park, Baker Creek Park, and I'm missing one other major park. There were 4 that were determined to be major parks, I believe, that were done, and then there are a number of minor parks that have signs, and then some parks didn't get signs at all. So like the Fun Street Park, the
Wildwood Park.
Tim's Park. Yeah, Wildwood
like
Park didn't get signs.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Moving on then, the additional item J1, and again, just during the first week of the school spring break, I had the opportunity to have another meeting with the chiefs. Unfortunately, Chief Baptiste from Estella was not able to join us, but the chiefs of the other First Nations did. We had a focused meeting on mental health and addictions services and the increase in those services being provided by Northern Health. And so Northern Health joined us and walked us through a similar presentation to what was given to council. The chiefs found it very productive and very interesting because there's lots of incremental services. But Northern Health also asked permission from the chiefs to engage with their communities in a more deliberate manner regarding how they can improve services at the community level and First Nations reserves. And and they were invited to do so with open arms. And so that was great to have that connection made, and it was a direct outcome of the meeting. In the roundtable session, so the substance was on the mental health and addiction services and where we need to do some work and make some improvements. The roundtable session was very good, and I'm feeling as though as we advance these conversations on a bi-monthly basis, we're getting more comfortable with each other and with the ability to talk about where we're at. There was significant interest on advancing the commemorative park, the residential school commemorative park, by all of the chiefs. And again, the findings in Williams Lake, the Prime Minister's visit down there, some of the struggles that they're having in community have all validated the need to have that place for learning about residential schools, for remembering the victims and survivors of residential schools, and as Chief LeBrun said, as a place for community healing as well. So I'm meeting with the Chief and Council LHTAKO tomorrow, and congratulations to Chief LeBrun and his council for their re-election. It's also a shift because Chief LeBrun is now chief for 4 years, as is their highest voted councillor, so they're starting to get some longer continuity there. I'm meeting with them tomorrow, and we'll be talking about some options to advance the commemorative park. We had a conversation, pretty substantive conversation about the status of the QJS property and where we're at with that, what our hopes and desires are for that. I think we're becoming more in alignment. And of course, a number of the economic development initiatives that we've got underway and the training opportunities. At our next meeting, we'll be bringing condolas to the meeting because they've asked to see if there's things that they can do to partner through the community forest that we all will be sharing, as well as they have a dormant sawmill. So are there economic development opportunities there or training opportunities? And so I've reached out to condolas for that next meeting. I think one of the key things that came out, and we're going to be following up to see what we can do, is the struggles that the communities are having with the high suicide rates. They continue, and as Chief LeBrun indicated, despite 2 extensive weeks, back-to-back weeks of healing circles and work with elders, etc., they had a couple double suicide. And Chief LeBrun indicated that the elders are indicating they need to do some kind of cleansing ceremonies. They're going to be doing some work in community, their communities, as well as in the city, to see if they can do some kind of reset in order to give people a better sense of self and health. And I think as a council, we can advance that. We've got very good work done through Manager Reid's department on repatriating the presence of the LHTAKO and Southern Carrier onto the Riverfront Trail through art, through recognition, through storytelling. We've got that opportunity now to advance that, and so we're going to be taking a look at ways that we can advance that in the near term as part of the cleansing of those areas and as part of bringing pride of place back to the LHTAKO people onto the riverfront that was theirs for millennia before settlement. So hopefully we'll have something to you by the end of April meeting on how we're going to try and accelerate the advancement of these projects and the really deeper recognition and restoration of the Southern Carrier and LHTAKO people into the heart of our community. So stay tuned for that. That's a quick verbal report. Any questions or comments? Our next meeting will be mid-May, and as I say, one of the meetings topics will be condolas, but hopefully we'll also be advancing the community forest to the next level and various other things as well. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the update. Extremely important. You did touch on one subject that I know a lot of the people in the community are concerned about besides, an extensive report that you just gave. But the QJS property, is there any kind of an update that you can give the general public?
No, not at this juncture. It's still a school property, and until the school district resolves some of their capital issues and some of the things that they need to do, then, and we're working with the school district on that, then that property, it has to be released by the school district before anything else can happen, and we're not there yet. Okay. Anything else? Okay, that's my verbal report. Next up, K1, Manager Reid on the CCTA request.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is for Council to consider joining the CCTA MRDT upon submission of their renewal application by August 2022 to be implemented in May 2023. So the CCTMA has collected a regional MRDT from accommodation providers throughout the region from 2018 to 2022, but excluding the properties within Quesnel and Wells. We were working on our own MRDT, and Wells previously had an established MRDT, which they no longer have. The province requires each MRDT entity to apply for renewal every 5 years. This requires demonstration of continued support from the properties in the defined region and development of a 5-year plan. The CCTA will submit their renewal documents in August 2022. The MRDT plan for 2023 includes objectives that overlap with our economic development transition strategy. Some of the highlights include promoting targeted campaigns to our domestic and international markets to yield greater return on investment, refine our regional identity to further prioritize our natural outdoor recreational spaces, which overlaps with our brand, work with Indigenous Tourism BC to promote and support Indigenous tourism, work with stakeholders and community groups to leverage the Destination BC Co-op program, and support our sport, meetings, events, and incentives markets. And that's new to their plans. That wasn't in their strategy previously. Joining the MRDT will mean that Quesnel will be included in the landwithoutlimits.com website, which we currently are not. That will link back to tourismquesnel.com. This website is promoted using MRDT funds via television commercials, print advertising, social media, email, and digital marketing. In addition, Quesnel hotels may be included in promotions run by the CCTMA, and the City of Quesnel or Quesnel-based organizations may apply to use MRDT funds towards Quesnel-based tourism projects. Council will have the opportunity to review ongoing plans prior to the next renewal date in 2028.
Thank you. So on the recommendation that we provide the letter of support, Councillor Runge so moved, seconded. Councillor Vic, any questions or comments further? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Manager Reid, for this. You know, it's been a long haul to get here. It's I don't want to look into the past too much, but I'm excited to see now the direction that we're going. I'm excited to see new faces at the CCTA that are bringing a new and improved, maybe for lack of a better term, vision for us. And really, I mean, the question was asked earlier, and one of the challenges that we talked about years ago is the amount of money that our area is going to put in there, and just trying to figure out how much money is actually going to be coming back to us. So I think we'll be able to gauge that over the next 5 years, and hopefully it'll all just be positive, and it'll be, you know, just perfect. But if not, we'll be able to see that once again and go back to the hoteliers if necessary. But I just hope it isn't, and I hope this works for everybody involved.
Great, thank you. It certainly, Manager Reid has done an analysis of where we're at just now. We're getting shortchanged, quite frankly, on the regional tourism. And when we canvassed that, when we met with the CCTA, there's a backing off in certain aspects of the general tourism dollars, and MRDT is coming in and backfilling, and so as a consequence, we get into some of that restriction. And then some of it, I think, is up to us to work with the CCTA on that product development. So there's no excuses that we've got product, it should be marketed, right? And I think that's where some of the dissonance was in the past, is that if you think about, what's the destination tourism aspects of Quesnel historically, relative to the Bella Coola corridor and the Horsefly Quesnel Lake resorts and so on, right? So we're aware of where the gaps are to take full advantage of this, but it also hopefully puts us in a better position and we can manage it better, where we get to see ourselves in the work of the CCTA fully, because we're full partners, but we also get to leverage any of those provincial dollars that are being made available as well. So I think it's the best approach for us. And quite frankly, the hoteliers that didn't participate and told us to go away, are foreign-owned developers that aren't interested in working with us as a community. This changes that dynamic, and the hotels that did buy in, they will have the leverage, if they so choose, to buy into this program and see those dollars come into our community. So, okay, on the motion, all those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carried unanimously. All right, the new face in the room. Supervisor Grant. Hi, Thomas. Tell us how you're going to spend a whole bunch of money.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Whoops.
Okay. The purpose of this report is to seek council approval to award the contract for runway 1331 taxiway alpha and apron rehabilitation project at the Quesnel Regional Airport to Terrace Construction, doing business as Quesnel Paving. The city obtained a grant of up to $8,789,910 from the Airport Capital Assistance Program to cover 100% of the cost to rehabilitate the runway, taxiway, and apron at the airport. The city hired Tetra Tech, an engineering firm specializing in airport projects, to design and oversee the project. The project was tendered and 2 submissions were received. Bidders were asked to provide multiple pricing options for 4 lighting systems. However, Transport Canada has indicated that the only lighting system eligible under the grant is option A, the Odells. The Odells is a lighting system currently in use at the airport. The tenders were evaluated by the engineer to confirm compliance with the mandatory requirements of the tender, and the recommendation is to award the contract to the lowest qualified bidder for the Odells, which was Terrace Construction. The bid price for Terrace Construction is $7,881,403.39, which is below the estimated cost projected by the engineer, and can be comfortably accommodated within the approved grant. To maintain the schedule, Terrace Construction has been notified that they were the low bidder, and we've asked them to provide required pre-construction deliverables for submission and review prior to entering into a contract with the city to perform the work. Standard civil works contract with supplementary general conditions will form the basis of the contract between the City of Quesnel and Terrace. The recommendation is that council approve the award of the contract for the runway and the runway rehabilitation project at the airport to Terrace Construction in the amount said before. The total funding for the project is $8 million, $789,910, totally funded by ACAP. Awarding this contract is within the budget provided by ACAP grant, with all expenses being eligible costs. Awarding this contract will provide substantial contingency for the project, as well as sufficient funds to cover all related soft costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott so moves. Councillor Runge seconds. Questions or comments? Councillor Paul.
Thank you. It's expected that this work won't interfere severely with operations, like it'll be business as usual?
Yeah, for the most part. Obviously, we'll have closures, but we're working with CMA to work with their schedule and have closures outside of the normal scheduled flights.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Paul, can you just flick your mic off, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. That motion's passed unanimously. Okay, next on community forest update, Manager Robinson.
Great, thank you, Mayor and Council. So the purpose of this report tonight is to update Council on the community forest agreement process to date and the upcoming tasks in 2022. Currently, the Community Forest Agreement, or the CFA, application is in the area selection, management plan development, and community engagement phase. The next immediate steps underway are setting up a limited partnership to manage the CFA, consulting various interested parties adjacent to the forest proposed area and those with overlapping rights and tenure, and also seeking approval from the Inspector of BC Municipalities, which of course is a municipal task that our other partners don't have to go through. There's no recommendations tonight. This is brought forward for information purposes only, and I'll just hit a couple of the background notes here. A management plan is a mandatory requirement. It's part of the CFA agreement application process, and it will include things like the vision, mission, guiding principles, resource-specific values, and the strategies for managing those values. The plan will also describe the governance structure, as I mentioned before, the limited partnership, and it will go through, governance items, let's say. Item B, area selection. So there is a map in attachment 1 of this report that shows the general area of interest that we're looking at. This will be an iterative process with the province. We will submit this area and we will, go back and forth until we land on an actual area that'll look a lot different than a large oval on a map, but this gives you a general idea. And as was mentioned in Councillor Vick's report, we are currently in a public engagement phase. We've had 106 responses to the survey that closed on March 31st, and we're in the process of rolling up all that information, all the comments and questions that people had via email, and then we'll do a public roll-up, with names removed and things like that, to say here's all the great responses we've had and do some qualitative and quantitative analysis, basically. And the immediate next steps, establishing the limited partnership. We have all of the partners' lawyers engaged in this process right now. The Inspector of Municipalities approval, and then referral and consultation, which is kind of a deeper dive with stakeholders, be that guide outfitters, ranchers, whoever it is that has tenure rights within the area. And then the other 2 appendices, I just have a general timeline for council's knowledge, and also the steps that we anticipate in attachment 3. Sorry, this is page 103 of your report, that goes through what the requirements for the inspector approval are. We're not at this stage yet, but something will be brought to you within the coming months as more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Reid. Questions or comments from council members? Councillor Paul.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the report. I understand that this is very early in the game, but looking at the map of the proposed community forest and the proposed general area, do you have an idea of what percentage of that land mass would be included in a community forest? And I'm thinking that obviously private lands and woodlots and First Nations and TFL 52 would be excluded.
Yeah, you're right that no private lands, woodlots, First Nations communities, or tree farm licenses will be included in the area. As far as a percentage of the 2 ovals you're seeing, Councillor Paul, I can't guess, but soon we'll have a more definite answer for you, but I don't want to say a percentage at this time.
Yeah, and if one of the drivers for what determines the land base is achieving the volume that's in the license. So that's one of the drivers. And of course, in the license on offer, there's a large deciduous component as well. So it's not just straightforward what we would consider coniferous saw log. There has to be the deciduous component. And that was part of the area's determination, even at the oval area, was where's the deciduous, so that you can make sure you're picking that up, right? So the base for this is, if you've got the Community Wildfire Protection Plan map in your head, the base for it is clearly that, and then volume drivers above that, and then the other piece was contiguous land base. And our trail systems are in here as well. There's a bunch of really beneficial factors if we can isolate that Crown land area into these two areas. Okay. Any other questions or comments? I mean, this is a long, slow process, but I have to say, touch wood, to date, it's been moving along very well. It is absolutely a collaborative process. The technical team that Aaron plays on has been doing, phenomenal work. We've got very good consultants working with us, and we have, significant goodwill on the part of the Ministry of Forests. And then the leadership connection that we have with the First Nations leadership is helping to move this along as well. So, okay. This is an information-only report, so if there are no further questions or comments, and I'm looking at the big screen too. Okay. Good. Thank you, Manager Robinson. Okay, next, Director Bolton, BIA levy.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is for Council to approve the 2022 levies for the 3 business improvement areas. This is not a renewal year for any of them, so the 3 BIAs were just asked to send a letter outlining their activities for the past year and their budgets to Council so that Council could approve them as required by their bylaws. So those are all attached. Both Quesnel Downtown and South Quesnel do expire at the end of this year, so this winter they will have to go through the renewal process. So the recommendation is that Council approve the following grants to the business improvement areas for 2022 to be collected by local service property tax levies, provided all other conditions of the bylaws are met by the business associations prior to payment of the grants. So the Quesnel Downtown Association, $69,000, South Quesnel Business Association, $80,000, and West Quesnel Business Association, $40,000.
And Director Rudenberg, were you signaling me?
Well, I wasn't sure because we're not actually voting on the levy piece. I wasn't sure whether I needed to recuse myself, but I'm sure you'll let me know if I need to go.
Yeah, I think it's best if you just flip your video and audio off just now, then there's no perception of conflict. And the reason for that is that Councillor Rudenberg is the executive director for one of the business improvement areas. So.
Unless anybody has a question about West Quesnel, I'd be more than happy to answer that. But
yeah,
other than that, I will.
Can't flip hats that way.
Oh, okay. Somebody else will have to answer them.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. On this, now the one area that Council knows that we were monitoring and working with, the South Quesnel Business Association, and I'd have to say that it's been a real turn there. I've had a number of meetings with their executive director and their executive. We're looking at some pretty interesting joint partnerships, some planning activities together, and so that concern that Council had for that group and the renewal of that levy, I think caused the group to reset and to be on a totally different path. So with Council's, what's Council's wish on this? So moved. Councillor Elliott moved. Councillor Runge second. Any questions or comments? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it was nice and refreshing to see the West, the downtown, all the work that they've been doing, but to your point, it was very refreshing to see the South and the new people involved, a little bit of new blood there. So they've been doing a lot of good work, and it sounds exciting. So great work from Charlotte and Tracy and the rest of the team. I'm excited to see. We know we've got a lot of initiatives that we want to see done there, but I'm excited that we're moving forward with this.
Councillor Paul.
Yes, thank you. I have no problem with what I have here in front of me, but maybe for future years, it might be an idea for staff to develop a template where the BIAs could simply put in their numbers, and so we could look at each and compare them. I know that they're requesting different amounts, but for instance, the one of these, I think it was the South Quesnel Business Association. I'm just going to pull up the page here that sort of drew my attention to this. one moment. Yeah, and it's page 114 of 142. On projects and events, they've got a $20,000 budget, but there's nothing allocated for beautification, development, safety, and community engagement. And it would be good to be able to see how each of these business improvement areas is allocating their funding to a common set of denominators, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but it's not how it works. These are independent organizations. Our only job is to validate that the levy is warranted, i.e. the case of South Quesnel, where we had some concerns and we put a pause on it. But you're comparing apples to oranges. Each of them have very different flavors, are doing very different things, and for us to try and categorize them and box them, I think defeats the purpose of having 3 autonomous organizations.
Yeah, I guess my point was kind of amplified by the fact that South Quesnel chose not to put in any numbers for their individual projects, but the other BIAs did.
Yeah, and I think that's a function, again, of the work that we're doing with the South Quesnel Business Association. They have a brand new executive director, and we're working with them. I think we've got at least 1 or 2 planning exercises we plan on undertaking with them. So I think the next one you'll see from them will have that more discrete detail. They'll catch back up again. So it's more a function of where they're at than intention. Okay. Yep. Anybody else? Questions or comments?
Yeah, just to Councillor Paul's point, I really do want to echo what the mayor said. These are independent organizations, and we do not want to micromanage them. They're so different in what they do. I mean, they have meetings that sometimes coincide with ours that I don't even meet with all of them. So the mayor's picked up with South Quesnel a lot, but the changes that we've seen have been fabulous, and all of them are doing a great job given what area of the city they're working with. And I just think it's I would totally disagree with that to try to box them in. Thank you.
Okay. So on the recommendation, I have a mover and seconder, right? Yes. On the recommendation, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, Councillor Rudenberg. There you are. Okay. K7, Spirit Center lease agreement, City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to obtain council's approval to renew the lease for the Spirit Center. The Spirit Center obviously is where we have the downtown washrooms, as well as some associated offices. So the city entered into a 5-year lease agreement effective in 2017 for 3,000 square feet of space in the downtown building at 246 Saint Laurent Avenue. And before you is essentially a request to roll over for another 5 years, and it does have a 5% increase on the base rate from $10 per square foot to $10.50 per square foot, and that is effective immediately, but it's for that full 5-year term. Staff felt that that was not an excessive increase. I believe that's it. Oh, this agreement also, in the previous agreement, there was a rebate which applied due to some investment that the city made in what benefited the property owner. That now has all been fully paid back. So that will also correspond to an increase to our overall lease rates. So the recommendation is that council enters into the attached 5-year lease agreement with the owner of 101 to 246 Saint Laurent Avenue for 3,063 square foot of space, and that the mayor and the corporate administrator be authorized to execute such documentation as required to complete the agreement. Thank you.
Have a motion to that effect, please. Councillor Rudenberg, seconded Councillor Vic. Questions or comments? Councillor Paul.
Yes, thank you. My arithmetic tells me that when you take into consideration the increase for the the base rental and then the increase in recognition of the renovation rebate is just shy of an increase just shy of $500 a month. My question is, how much roughly is the triple net portion that would be added onto this? And also, what is the estimate of the revenue realized from subleasing that would come off of that?
City Manager.
Thank you. I'm actually presenting this report for Director Norbert, and I don't have those numbers in front of me, so we would be happy to put those numbers out to you if required, but I'm sorry, at this point I don't have them.
We can make a note of that, and council can get that by way of an email, filling them back in. It doesn't change the substance of the report or the request, which is the lease increase, because we're the leaseholder. Any other question, Councillor Runge?
Once again, I think we do want to focus on the 5% increase over the 5-year term, which is, if you want to put it over 5 years, it's 1% per year, roughly, or it's 5% straight away. But that 366 for the difference, that's just, that's standard practice. We've done the renovations, we've moved on. So that we do have to, would have come to our way anyway. So I don't think that actually should even be in the discussion here.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? So on the recommendation, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, next report, the curling center, the asphalt and road repair contract. Director Coben.
Yes, the purpose of this report is to gain council approval to award the 2022 paving contract to Quesnel Paving. The paving, asphalt and road patching tender for 2022 closed on March 17th, with Quesnel Paving being the only bidder. This contract's for 1 calendar year with options of extending the contract with the same pricing for up to 2 years, which would be 2023 and 2024 if mutually agreeable by both parties. The capital and operating combined budget, paving budgeted amount for 22, which has been approved by council, is just over $1 million. The 2022 contract, it would see a price increase over 2019 of approximately 30%. And the recommendation is that Quesnel City Council approve award of the 2022 paving contract with options of up to 2 year-by-year mutually agreed upon extensions to Quesnel Paving.
Okay, on the recommendation, Councillor Runge, so moved. Seconded, Councillor Goulet. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, next, the Curling Center Roof Repair Assistance. Director Bolton.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to obtain approval from council to assist the Curling Center by providing short-term financing so that the club can complete a project to repair the Curling Center roof. So they have applied for a grant through the Canada Community Revitalization Fund. This report is incorrect. I was notified that they haven't actually received confirmation. They're quite positive, but they haven't received final confirmation yet. The total project is $176,400. They are supplying 25% of the other costs of the cost of the project. And unfortunately, they just don't have the funds to pay for the project, and they don't get the money back until the grant money until the project is complete. So they're asking us to provide some bridge financing. So the recommendation is that council approve the City of Quesnel providing a short-term interest-free loan of up to $132,300 to the Quesnel Curling Club to provide bridge financing for the roofing repair project for the Curling Center building upon word of a successful grant application, with the understanding that the club will fully reimburse the city for the loan. And that council directs staff to provide notice of the city's intent to provide assistance to the Quesnel Curling Club in accordance with the Article 24 of the Community Charter, and that the authorized signatory for the city be approved to duly execute an agreement for the loan with the Quesnel Curling Club after notification has been made in accordance with the Community Charter.
Councillor Elliott, so moved. Councillor Runge, second. Questions or comments? Councillor Runge.
Sorry, so as stated by Director Bolton, so we're just adding upon grant approval into it so that we have there. Thank you.
Anything else? And it's my recollection, I know Director Norban isn't here, but the only thing remaining in the curling center now is the floor. right? The roof's taken care of, all the renovations were done internally to the kitchen and the upstairs, and the ice plants have all been taken care of. So over the last little while, that group have made significant headway, and we've been able to assist them to make headway. So it's great that they've got this piece covered as well. Okay. So on the motion, on the recommendation, all in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. So the next report, and again, council is aware, late agenda items, we try as hard as possible to avoid late agenda items that require a decision in the moment. This one does. The reason for that, it is time sensitive, and there's a desire for us to get on with this. If we don't do it tonight, we wouldn't be able to see it until April 29th. So that's why it's coming forward, even though it's a decision item on such short notice. So Director Coben.
Yes, the purpose of this report is to gain council approval to award the contract for construction of the new RV campground, which is located at the old Public Works Utilities office side. During 2021, the decommissioning of the old utility site was completed. This included some environmental remediation and reporting. With the use of the site as an RV park and the limited size of the buildings, like where precast washrooms, it's determined building permit will not be required. Over the winter, detailed design was completed. An operating model adopted once the park's opened has been determined. The new campground, as in previous reports, will have 2 washrooms, 21 sites, including 1 caretaker site. With the award of this contract, the campground is projected to be operational by mid-summer this year. 2 bids were received for this project on April 5th, and this is currently under evaluation. The mass construction in the amount of $1,064,535, and Canadian Western Mechanical just over $1.6 million. Like I said, this pricing, it's currently under evaluation, and the recommendation is that council approve award of the campground construction to mass construction, subject to confirmation of meeting all the tender submission requirements in the amount of $1,064,535 plus GST, with funding coming from a combination of NDIT, SARA, which is Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program, gas tax, and city general capital.
Okay. Councillor Elliott, so moved. Is anybody? Second, Councillor Goulet. Questions or comments? Councillor Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Was it always intended that that we would be dipping into general capital for this?
Yes.
And to what extent are we doing that?
So again, this is not a discussion of the budgetary requirements for this. This is a discussion of assigning that budgetary item to a particular contractor. So it's not a budget debate. It's an assignment of the money that's budgeted to a contractor.
So we're not at liberty to, you're not at liberty to tell me how much we're going to dip.
No, you should know, Councillor Paul. So again, that's part of the due diligence around budgeting. So this is a budgeted item. We've had the debate about where the budget's coming from, and it's now just going out. If we revisited every tender that we've got, and we have to go back and revisit the budget item, that's just not fair to staff, and it's not appropriate.
With all due respect, I do recall that when I asked the question probably 2 years ago, that I was told that it was all coming from grants and gas tax and NDIT. I do not recall any discussion about the fact that it was going to come out of general taxation.
General capital, I think, in the sense of some of the remedial work that's been done, et cetera?
Yes, that's correct, yeah.
So again, this is, we were responsible. What this has done is catch-all of all the dollars involved in this project. And our commitment to this project was the remediation of the site. So our general capital to this project, in my recollection, is nominal relative to what it would have cost us if we didn't have the grants to actually build an RV site on top of it. But that's a discussion we had extensively in budget. So we do not revisit budget decisions when we're assigning the money in the budget to a contractor. That is not our practice. City Manager.
Further on that line, Mr. Mayor, it should be noted that with this, the budget is fit, or the project fits within that budget what's been assigned previously by council. So, and the reason this is brought as a late item is because it does fit within that budget, and because there's such a large differential between his bidders that it becomes very obvious which is the correct bidder to go with in this case, and the bidder who was successful with it, or appears to be successful here, is a competent bidder that's done extensive work for the city. So all of those factors, and in particular, you're absolutely correct, those budget decisions have already been made previously by council.
Yeah, the only time the council would engage if we were issuing a contract and approving a contract, the only time council would engage in revisiting the budget is if it was over the budgeted amount, and then it's appropriate to ask the question about where it's going to come from. That is not the case in this case. Councillor Runge.
I just want to give a thank you to the City Manager Johnson, because that was my question. Are we within what we budgeted previously? And you just clarified that we were, so thank you.
And again, our practice is if we're not, it states clearly in the report and states clearly from the Director of Finance where we would fund the overage. Okay, so on the recommendation then to award the contract, and again, pending due diligence work that Director Coben will do, all those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Paul opposed. Okay. Okay, next, moving on then to bylaws. N1, the City of Quesnel Housing Agreement Authorization Bylaw, final adoption. Yes. Councillor Goulet, so moved. Councillor Elliott, second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And then the additional bylaw, 1923, the City of Quesnel Streets Bylaw, final adoption. Councillor Grudenberg, so moved. Go ahead, Councillor Vick. You might as well put your hand up too there. I'm looking at the monitor. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carried unanimously. No changes to upcoming meetings or committee appointments, announcements, future events. Seeing none. Gallery questions. Seeing none, I would invite a motion to adjourn. Councillor Runge, so moved. Councillor Elliott, second. Any further questions or comments on adjournment? Oh, wait, you're not allowed to. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried.